as well. He locked me up in a Crawford jail cell. Dipper, dipper. Now the anti-tracker knew dear Bob was a fraud. He had Thomas Potts in the Turtle Steady Rescue Squad. When they broke me out, Bernard Bray was annoyed. He chased us but crashed into an asteroid. Dipper, dipper. Dear Bob, now he's a big flop. Just a liar on a laptop. Thought he owned me, but he did not. He's evil, he's evil. Helped me escape the bird cop. Then Bird became a grease spot. Dear Bob, I'm free from you, dear Bob. Free from you, dear Bob, dear Bob. AT gave me a new job to the steady secretary of art. I don't have to push a mop now. I'm reintroduced. Champagne bottles always pop, and we drink till the last drop. Thank God, dipper. Oh, dipper. Oh, dipper.
Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Tracker here, and yes, I am back, meaning that I feel so much better. Many of you know I've been fighting a nasty sinus infection for about a week, and I was just, oh man. So yesterday I finally got to the point. I was like, you know what, screw it. I basically called in I took half the day off from work, rested, and now I feel about 1,000 times better than I did before. So I'm just excited to be alive and in one piece. By the way, this is like the latest render of that Star Destroyer. This is the same model that I used before. I've been working on lighting it, and I have to say I'm starting to learn this stuff. I still have a ways to go. If I bring it up, let me see if, of course, it's not there. It is on the wrong screen, so let me switch it here. There we go. This is the last render that I did of it. And so you can see I'm adding lights to it, working on making it look a little more real. And so I think that this is looking pretty darn sweet. And my ultimate plan is, you guys, most of you I'm sure have already seen the video that I did on the speculation of the advantages and disadvantages of warp drive, hyperspace, turbo lasers, phasers, etc. And so I want to actually animate a really nice looking full-on battle between these two mighty warships. And when I say these two mighty warships, I mean that. I know that a lot of people think that I think that the Star Destroyer is a pushover. It's not. It has its definitive limitations, but at close range, one of the deadliest ships that we've ever seen. I would dare say the combined firepower of all those turbo lasers, probably, more powerful than anything in Trek, short of maybe something like the Doomsday Machine. And I think that's even pushing it. So, but this is just what I'm working on. I see Bradley doesn't like that angle of the Star Destroyer. Yeah, I was just trying to see how it looked from that angle. I'm going to rotate. Let me see. If we move it to, say, the other direction, and this will probably take a couple minutes, and we'll see what happens as this is the rendering process live. Hopefully it doesn't cause any stuttering in the stream, because this uses a lot of resources to do a render. And so, yeah, you can see it's taking a minute. And that if you think about it this way, when you are making an animation, if you want it high quality like this image, it takes this long to render each individual frame of the animation. And so like for that last video, I had not a whole lot, probably a total of about a minute of animation of the Enterprise and the Star Destroyer, just basically rotating and showing different views of them. And that took a couple of days to render out. This, this level of quality that I'm working on right now will probably take a couple of days just to render out one animation, but I think it'll be well worth it. And what I'm thinking about doing is setting up my other computer as basically a render machine, so I don't have to render it on this machine. Maybe I can get LDG to give me a good rendering computer. That would be awesome. LD, you could do that, right? You got stuff. And Eric, Star Destroyer versus a Borg cube is an interesting one, because again, close range is the key, and the Borg do fight at close range. It would appear that the Borg prefer short range, highly effective weapons and an incredibly active defense. And so I think that would actually, barring Borg drones beaming over and assimilating, let's say that we take that off the table somehow, and I'll come up with an excuse for that, it would be a really interesting matchup, because both of them are short-range powerhouses, but at a distance don't seem to be that much of a threat. And so I do like that concept. And in fact, I had an idea I'll share with you in a minute, but let me read a little bit of the chat while this is rendering. Thomas was first once again. Welcome, Thomas. Bradley says, "Sup, everybody." Carlos says first. Bradley says, "Thomas, you are a worthy foe." Okay. Thomas says, "Back." Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Carlos says, "Not first." And hi, I hope everyone is as well as can be. Me too. Resolute is in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Bird of Prey says, "Quapa, the evil one is here." Roxall says, "How can I miss you if you never leave and go away?" Well, I've been sick. Come on, dude. And Martin says, "Shocking picture. I miss him every shoot." I'm not sure what the shocking picture is, Martin, but okay. Bradley says, "I miss him every shoot." And not sure what that means. Resolute says, "Back. Did you even leave?" I didn't stream yesterday. And Live with Matthew's in the house says, "Hi, diddly ho." Hey, Matthew. I know that Matthew and I have been working on a super secret project that you guys are going to go bananas for when you see it. It's going to probably take a little bit of time to get it done, but wow, when it's done, it's going to be mind-blowing. Thomas says, "Thank you for streaming. I was watching the Ozzy of Prey stream from last week." Yeah, that was painful. I got to say, Bird, you should not do a whole stream in an accent. That was difficult. Roxanne says, "You need to check Twitter for what you were tagged in yesterday." I will try to find it, Roxanne. Wait till this render's done so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like here. And let's see. Bradley says, "Sounding and looking good." Thank you. Carlos says, "You look 1,701% better." Thank you, my friend. The best number to look better. John says, "The render's looking nice." I assume you meant the one that it was on before. Then Eric said, the Star Destroyer versus Borg cube. I do think that would be a really interesting matchup, but boy, modeling a Borg cube, that'll be a fun one. So if you're back, where's the AC/DC song not playing in the background? Oh man, that would be, I tried to think how, you know what? Oh, man, too bad Pianodean's not here. Like for Kurdistan, he could do AC/DC cover of "Back in Crap" or something like that, I think that would be good. I do love me some classic AC/DC. No notification, just random check. Well, I'm glad you're here, my crazy Irish friend. Jeff is in the house. Good to see you. "I can do a great Irish accent," says Darth Revan. Yeah, you can. I will vouch for that. And unlike Bird, yeah. And then Bird says, "Crikey." Crikey? Like is that supposed to be Irish, Bird? Because that's not Irish. Aberjab says, "Greetings, oh great Kurdistani. I'm playing DayZ, but I'll be lurking." I'm not sure what DayZ is. I'm going to guess it has to do with zombies since it has the Z in it, and everybody likes to do that. Martin says, "The Executor Star Destroyer would be much better match for the Borg." Yeah, but I don't know. I'd have to see if I can find a high-quality model of the Executor. These two models I've had actually for a long, long time. It's funny because I actually saw this Star Destroyer model you can buy online for like $15. When I got it, it was free because the person that was making it was just getting started. But I saw he's got it on sale now on Turbo Squid. Mountains of Elysium says, Hail Kuroga and Free Auntie, how you doing? Darth Vader says, Death Star versus Borg, who would win? You see, Death Star is an unfair matchup for almost anything because here the problem you run into with Death Star type battles against almost anything from Star Trek or even most other franchises is we know the weaknesses of the Death Star. Forget about the thermal exhaust port problem. The biggest weakness of the Death Star, and it would become painfully obvious in a capital ship battle, is that the super laser can only fire in one direction, right? I mean, granted, it might have a decent firing arc, but it's not going to be able to fire in the opposite direction, like if you have something on the other side of it. And from everything we've seen, and it makes perfect sense, this is one thing I'll give Star Wars some credit for. And this is something they do not do enough of, and in fact, it's something that fell apart in Generation 2 of Star Trek, is Star Wars knows how to move big ships so that they look like big ships. A perfect example, while I was working on lighting up the Star Destroyer yesterday, I was watching Empire Strikes Back. So what I usually do, like if I'm sitting here doing some work on a 3D model, I'll put a movie up on this screen while I'm working on this one. And so I had Empire Strikes Back, and there's the scene where the Millennium Falcon is being pursued by 3 Star Destroyers, and that's when Han makes the run for the asteroid field. And when Han takes the Falcon and makes a quick dive, and the 2 Star Destroyers hit each other, beautifully done, because you could just tell that no matter how hard they tried, the Star Destroyers just could not turn fast enough to avoid crashing into each other. And so that's something to the creators at Lucasfilm's credit, in that the big ships feel like big ships. That's a problem I have with the Dominion War arc, because they have Federation ships, granted smaller than Star Destroyers, but these are still big-ass ships, and they're zipping around, and like Miranda class now moves around like a freaking fighter. It's just, I don't like that. I think capital ships should move like capital ships. Granted, you got to scale it. So, like, the Enterprise can turn faster than a Star Destroyer, but any fighter could outmaneuver the Enterprise, right? That's just how you do it. That's why, having coverage, if you're a capital ship, as far as your weapons, is vital. Some people have suggested that you attack a Star Destroyer from behind because it doesn't have anything back there. I don't know if it has any rear-facing weapons or not. Canonically, we've only seen them engage from the front and the side. We haven't seen Star Destroyer engage something behind it. But I would assume, based on the raw firepower of a Star Destroyer, that it would have something. Anyway, so you can see this render is done, obviously. Let me switch back to the main viewer, and we'll continue the conversation. Let's see. But Death Star, the problem is that any capital ship that has a decent amount of firepower, you just go to the far side of the Death Star, facing away from the super laser, and start pummeling it until you dig down to the energy core and destroy it. I mean, that's basically it. Now, the only catch is you have to have weapons that are powerful enough to do damage, and basically would have to be energy based, because if you have torpedoes, for example, photon torpedoes are very powerful, but typically in the old days they would say that a starship had like a magazine of 20 of them. 20 torpedoes is not going to dig to the core of the Death Star. It'll do some superficial damage, but that's it. However, you could phaser your way to tunnel down and then fire a torpedo into the core. That would be a realistic tactic. So you have to have energy-based weapons. So like Battlestar Galactica in the reboot would never be able to defeat the Death Star because they just don't have enough ammunition. Then, of course, if you work into it that, say they have the Death Star plan so they know the weakness, well, then that changes everything. Darth Orton says, I already read that. Rockstar says, I can do accents unlike Bird of Prey 5. My tech accent is on point.
I got him!
Oh, and Joe Biden donated $1. Thank you, Joe.
Happy Monday. What's a Star Destroyer? Number 22.
Number 22. You got it. Gotta love the classics. All right. Broxel says, my tech support accent is on point. I made Joseph Patrick cry laughing so hard. Wow, I got to hear that. Bird O'Prey says, crikey is Australian for son of a bitch. I'm not sure you're right on that, Bird. So let's find out. So what does crikey mean in Australia? All right. The word crikey originated from the mid-19th century as a euphemism for Christ. It was a mild form of oath. It was a popular term of surprise in the early 20th century in Australia. The word crikey, it means Christ. There you go. So it's not Australian for son of a bitch. It's Australian for Jesus Christ. That kind of a thing. Yep, PvP zombie apocalypse survival game. Oh, very cool. Zeno says, can't you ask for help? I could. I'm not sure why. I mean, I do need help, but, you know. Make sure you check Streamlabs when you get off this stream in case you got any. Okay. I have Streamlabs right here. I see the Joe Biden thing. So, and that was the Happy Monday. So I don't know if there was a delay on that one. I know you talk to Joe a lot. Vile says, howdy, folks. You want to support Antrick and get a cool ship? Check out the eBay store. Indeed. Thank you, Vile. Mike. Jeff says, confirmed, Bird of Prey 5 is blind. We know that. Species 8472 versus the Death Star. Species 8472 would annihilate the Death Star. It wouldn't even be close because we've seen it. If 8472, assuming they had half a dozen bioships, it's over because they could approach from any direction and destroy the Death Star in a single shot. I mean, they have a planet-busting weapon. And so the problem is that they're also very maneuverable and fast, unlike the Death Star. If I was doing a big ship, I would line the sides with emergency thrusters along the sides. Well, yeah, and that's how, in the real world, that's how you design ships. I mean, actually, if you want to see good ship design, the Expanse, the ships are not as sexy as a starship or a Star Destroyer or something, but the thing is that they are ship designs that would actually work. Darren says, I think the new maneuverability of the Miranda class makes sense as long as there's still big feeling ships in the fleet. I'm fine with the older ships getting some maneuverability. I'm not. I get it, but I'm really not. But I mean, they wanted to have something that was like, okay, you have the big ships and then you have smaller ships, and the Defiant is like the main small ship, right? Because it's a overpowered mini powerhouse. But the problem with the Defiant is that they made it too big. I mean, yeah, I don't particularly like the warp nacelle design and all that crap, but my biggest gripe with the Defiant is it's too damn big because it's the size of a Miranda class and they make it sound like it's crowded with 100 people on board. And so what they should have done is made it maybe twice the size of the Millennium Falcon. Maybe. And give it like, imagine if you have a ship the size, twice the size of a Millennium Falcon with the warp core of an Intrepid. That is an overpowered ship. Darren says, one of the DS9 effects guys said the only reason they included fighters in the big space files was to help them lessen the maneuverability of the Defiant Mirandas by comparison. Yeah, but it wasn't enough. Honestly, they needed if they want, and really, what I think they should have done is they should have staged the battles more like old timey swashbucklers. And oh, by the way, speaking of which, all right, one of my favorite movies of all time is a movie, a little film from the 30s, I believe, called Captain Blood. Stars Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. It's a wonderful swashbuckling film. If you like swashbucklers, Captain Blood is one of the best. But the interesting thing about the movie that I did not know, and by the way, stored away, I actually have Olivia de Havilland's, the female lead's autograph that I got at a con in California. But what I did not know, and I just found out the other day, Olivia de Havilland is still alive. She is 104 years old and living in France today. I was absolutely shocked. I had no idea she was still alive. And wow, props to you, Olivia de Havilland. And if you ever see this, I am a huge fan. You were an incredibly beautiful woman and a wonderful actress, and I loved you in Captain Blood. Why don't they just aim for the docking bay? They are giant open spaces. Are you talking about on the Death Star? Well, I could. Josh says, Voyager from the Endgame versus any Star Wars capital ship. Well, I don't think Voyager doesn't need to be souped up. Keep in mind, I would argue that the Akani has a distinct advantage over pretty much any Star Wars capital ship. And if the Connie could take it out, the Intrepid could easily take it out. I mean that's one of the reasons I didn't use any of the later gen ships, is because besides the fact that I think the Connie is a better looking ship, I mean, almost any other ship would just rip them apart. And butthurt Star Wars fans created a dollar.
I'm offended by your video. Star Wars is vastly superior to Trek. I don't like your logic. Now I am going back to my basement and cry holding my Obama and Bernie doll number 20.
Wow. Hey, you know, but the funny thing is, butthurt, and you bring, I am a huge Star Wars fan, all right? So I will be completely honest. I am not offended when people say the Star Wars ships would win. I just call BS on it because of the fact that the facts don't lie that way. It's not that, oh, you're hurting Star Wars or you're hurting Star Trek by saying the Star Wars ships are tougher. No. And I will say for the record that the coolest weapon of all time in science fiction is the lightsaber. No question. But let me get number 20 here for the butthurt fan.
Anal na trach, was betad, durch hel dienle.
Ariel Natris Oris Bazi Bedhead Juchel Dementa. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yes, indeed. Bird of Prey 5, speaking the charm of Macon. Resolute says, go to the opposite side of the Death Star wouldn't help. There are tens of thousands of turbo lasers on that side. Yeah, but the problem with that, though, Resolute, is all you got to do is stay, you know, a couple 100 kilometers away. And the turbo lasers are going to be ineffective at that range. And we've seen that. And keep in mind that planetary bombardment, you would be a minimum 300 kilometers away anyway, and you would just view destroying the Death Star as destroying a planet. It would be a planetary bombardment kind of situation. And so Carlos says, I like the way space battles and Space Above and Beyond are done. Fighters are quick and nimble, but capitals are slow and well-armed. CGI is dated, but a great show. I don't think it's been a long time since I've seen that show. I don't remember much about it. Mountains Valencia says, could the Galactic have used cyber warfare against the Death Star and won the day that way? Baltar and Gata, I think is what you mean, were both very competent, especially if Rebel Cylons were on their side. You know, that's interesting because I don't think so, Mountains of Elysium, and I'll tell you why. In Star Wars, they already they don't rely on computers very much. They have droids, and you might be able to, like, I think the Cylon, the Cylon virus might work on droids, like you could, you know, and turn the droids against people. But most, like the weapons and placements, they're mostly manually controlled. You see a guy sitting in a turret and aiming. You don't see computers controlling their weapons like on Star Trek. Now, the Cylons versus Star Trek would be interesting because of the fact that Trek does depend on computers a lot. And Josef puts in a couple of euros. Thank you, my friend from Slovakia. And we'll wait for him to be read by the computer. Roxanne says, Bird of Prey 5 thinks Jesus is the son of a bitch, confirmed. Yep, you know, Bird is just, he's going downstairs, if you know what I mean.
Hello, world.
And there it is.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Ario's Nachos Dementor. Bird is weird. Number 2.
I will agree with you. Bird is definitely weird.
I'm a better female character than you.
You would be if you didn't spend all your time with that temper tantrum meme guy.
At least I'm not the one on a show with a questionable acronym.
Take it back.
No!
Yes.
Oops. Sorry to bother you.
There you go. Oh, man. And, I just thought, I can't say because I might have Joshua do it as an animation, but I was just thinking about a great spoof of Avengers Endgame. Anyway, let's see. Who couldn't figure out what crikey meant just by hearing the word? Well, I actually didn't know, Darren. I mean, I didn't put it together, so, you know. There's no real reason for ships of any size to lack great maneuverability in space, especially if they have inertial dampeners to prevent the crew from going splat. Sure there is, Mike. It's called power. Honestly, that's it. You have to generate enough thrust to move the mass of the ship. And that's one thing I appreciate about Star Wars, is that they don't, just because Star Destroyer has a massive reactor doesn't give it unlimited thrust. And so it can't turn on a dime. And you see, like, there's one of my favorite shots in Empire is the Falcon is diving down and you see the Star Destroyer just slowly trying to turn in that direction. It, you know, regardless of inertial dampeners, the big problem is you have to generate enough thrust to move that mass. And unless the ship is composed entirely of engines, it's very difficult to create that kind of thrust. In Star Trek and Star Wars, actually, is that the idea is that except for when you're using either hyperdrive or warp drive, you are using conventional physics, which means that a ship the mass of the Enterprise is not going to turn on a dime. It doesn't matter if you have inertial dampeners. What matters is how much thrust can you generate. I mean, granted, the inertial dampeners would prevent the crew from dying if you could generate that much thrust. Hey, wouldn't a Borg cube be easier since you really only have to render one side of a six-sided shape? You mean like building the model? If I wanted to cheat, yeah. I mean, if you want to make each side identical. But really, if you look at especially after First Contact, the proper design of a Borg cube would be to put the portal for the sphere on one side. The sides shouldn't be identical, you know. I saw problems with an ISD having less weapons range than an F-16 with an AIM 120D. Well, you know what? You may not like it, but that's the way they built the universe. And that's actually something I've seen on in other videos and stuff, is the fact that really, if you look at it, the Empire has tech that is inferior to modern-day Earth. In fact, even Earth of the 1960s in some ways. If you take away hyperdrive and whatever they use as their main reactor on the ships, which they never really, I get it that in books and stuff they talk about hypermatter and reactors and stuff, but you don't ever see that. I mean, that's not something they ever show in the films, because that's not what Star Wars is about. Star Wars isn't about getting into the nuts and bolts of how stuff works. It's just about space wizards and laser swords and crap like that. Who would win, an army of Sith or an army of Borg? Well, if you're talking about Sith Force users, because keep in mind there are the Sith people, which we only saw in one film, but they do exist, the race of the Sith. But then you also have Force users like Palpatine himself, right? And so if these Sith were Force users, I would go with the Sith all the way. If it was just a Sith army, meaning people from whatever the name of that planet was, then the Borg. The Defiant is much smaller than the Miranda, I believe. Here's a comparison. Let me see what you have there. I've seen one of these charts before, but see, now that version of the Defiant is a lot smaller than I'm trying to think of the one that I'm thinking of, but let me put and in and we go to images. I want to see if I can find the image I'm looking for. Man, it's like these are. Let me see this one. Okay, yeah, this is a good one. It's about if you take off the warp pylons of the Miranda, the Defiant is about the same size. Now, so look at this GIF here. You see the Defiant in the middle. Compare that to the saucer sections of the two Miranda ships. It's about the same size. It's a little narrower, but it's also thicker. So like it's narrower on the x-axis, but it's thicker on the z-axis. So yes, I would say that mass-wise, the Defiant is probably even a little bigger than the Miranda, if you look at how thick it is in comparison. Now, granted, I would not count necessarily the warp pylons, because the Defiant doesn't even have warp pylons, and but you notice that the Mirandas are just keeping pace with it, though, and then there's the fighters zipping by too. But I think the Defiant should be at least reduced by half. All right, and back to it we go. Let me bring that back up so I can still see it. All right. Darth says, Enterprise E versus Voyager. That is a very tough one to actually nail down, to be honest with you. I would probably give that one to the Enterprise E, but I would say the Voyager could probably take down a Galaxy. Yeah, the Defiant isn't the same size as Miranda based on its official information. There's some misleading VFX shots through DS9. Well, I just showed you one. And the thing is, what is canon is what's on screen, not what's in a book or a chart or any of that. Star Wars said a long time ago, Star Trek set in the future, really not fair to compare. No, because Star Wars is not set in this galaxy, so it doesn't matter. Honestly, the time period of Star Wars is irrelevant, because it is in a completely different part of the universe than the Milky Way. I mean, just because it's a long time ago, well, if they started their civilization 1 million years before us, and what is a long time ago? I mean, is a long time ago last week? 6 hours ago? 1 million years ago? What is a long time ago? And it doesn't matter. And that's funny. I've heard that argument before. I really don't understand the argument, because they say it's set in the past, but it's not in our past. So what difference does it make? It really makes no difference whatsoever, unless at some point they try to say that the people in that galaxy are the forebearers of us or something like that. There's no connection. And so it really is irrelevant. Anyway, Rockslot says, if you hover and don't sit on the toilet and me poo, that would be considered an orbital bombardment. Darth Earth says, who performs maintenance in the Star Trek on Star Trek? Like if I blocked my toilet and broke table, who fixes my room? That'd be O'Brien. Pianodean is in the house. I ask you how funny was Birds Crash and Dear Bob. It is hilarious. People are going to die laughing when they hear it. But I'm not, I haven't played it yet because I want to wait till I have a video ready for it. Captain Trek is in the house, says, good morning. How you doing, Captain? Doesn't know, Andy Trekker doesn't know what an inertial dampener is. Sure I do. But that's irrelevant to what, as far as an inertial dampener protects the people inside a ship, but it does not affect how maneuverable the ship is. It's basically, the idea of inertial dampeners is it's just a fictional idea to prevent people, prevent the argument that, hey, if you really maneuvered like that, everybody inside would die. And the thing is that you have to realize that impulse drive on a starship can go 3/4 of the speed of light, roughly. And so if you suddenly came to a stop, like let's say something grabbed you in a tractor beam and it suddenly decelerated, everybody, without inertial dampeners, everybody would be dead. The funny thing is, of course, there have been many times in Trek, especially in Generation 2 Trek, where they would say, oh, the inertial dampeners are offline, and yet nobody seems to be affected by it. But yeah, that's... And let's see, you are confusing speed with maneuverability. Yes, inertial thrust needed to change the direction, but Trek has technobabble to mitigate that. No, I'm not confusing speed with maneuverability. The starships are very fast, but they're not that nimble. I mean, they're more nimble than, say, a Star Destroyer, but they're not as nimble as, say, an X-Wing, and they shouldn't be. I'm sorry, but I know that people want it. I don't know why people want to see freaking fighter jet style starship combat. It looks stupid to me. You can love it all day long. That's your personal taste. I think seeing Miranda class ships acting like fighter wings is stupid. And it takes away from the majesty of starships, especially when you look at like a battle like the Battle of Mutara Nebula. I mean, imagine that battle if the Enterprise and the Reliant were just zipping around like they are in that shot that I showed you just a minute ago. It would have been ridiculous looking. And so I'm sorry. Yes, the only reason it works to a certain extent in that shot is because they're surrounded by other ships, and it makes it look like, well, those ships are bigger. They did a good job, by the way, in that sequence of making the Galaxy-class ships look like they were big, not as nimble, stuff like that. But they made, it should have been a scale difference. You should have had fighters zipping around, Miranda class, and then the Defiant being like in between a fighter and the Miranda. The Defiant should have been about half that size at most. And then the Miranda class ships moving less nimbly, and then the Galaxy class ships just barely moving, but they don't do that. Anyway, back to it. The dampeners effectively lowers the mass inside the field from to 0 or near 0. That's how O'Brien moved DS9 from Bajor to the wormhole. Actually, that's not how they normally work, Resolute. O'Brien had to jury rig the thing to do that. That's not how they work under normal operation. But even if they did, and if that's their techno-babbly excuse, it's not about that. It just looks stupid. Sorry. I mean, you're not going to change my mind on that. You can come up, I'm sure there are techno-babble excuses for how you could do it and make ships more maneuverable than they should be, but making a ship more maneuverable doesn't make it look cool. Not to me. To me, what makes it look cool is the fact that I believe in that universe. When I see a battle, excuse me, like the Battle of the Sacrifice of Angels, that breaks my suspension of disbelief, because those don't look like starships, they look like X-Wings. When I watch a battle like the Mutara Nebula, I'm on board 100%. Do you see the difference? I don't know. Maybe you just like it that way. That's fine. That's your personal taste, and it's entirely subjective to what you like. And I don't hate you for liking something different than me. I just think it looks ridiculous. The diameters are effectively... I already read that. Wild Mike says, also, Star Destroyers are not slow by any means. Yes, they cannot turn on a dime, but once they get going, they're nearly as fast as the Falcon. Hence why I didn't say speed. I was talking about maneuverability. And that's what I like, is that they don't show... Like the Falcon, if you look at the ratio... A TIE fighter can run circles around the Falcon, which in turn can run circles around a Star Destroyer. No problem whatsoever in that. Although they did make the Falcon a little too maneuverable in Empire, but at least I buy it because it's a small ship. So how does a Star Destroyer slow down or stop in normal space? I've not seen it flip around and use its main drive to do this. That's a good question. I think that they just would answer space magic. Because they're and the reason they don't do that is because they would think that it looks stupid to do that, but actually it would make it feel more real. If you look at the way the Expanse handles it, they do it perfectly. Darth Vader says, who would win, super spicy jalopy or my toilet? I'm not going to answer that. The Xbox isn't the only one with a red ring of death. Oh, Jesus. Carlos, crikey. So the Defiant can change its size at will. It's on screen. Look, I'm not going to argue with you about it. I mean, as far as what you see on screen, the Defiant is roughly the mass of a Miranda class. And yes, unfortunately, visual effects are not 100% accurate all the time. Sometimes they film the models too close or too far, and their 3D rendering is a little bit off. They don't use scale properly. That's something that I've been very careful about with my Star Destroyer and Enterprise, like you see on the view screen here. This is to scale, and the way you do that properly is in Blender, which happens to be the 3D app that I'm using for this, just because I'm a cheap ass and I'm not going to pay for a Lightwave upgrade, even though I like Lightwave better. Anyway, but if you look at the scale, I actually made it so that within Blender, this is 1600 units and this is 304. Shadow Worship versus ISD. I don't know enough about the Shadow Worship to give an honest answer there. I don't know what the effective range of their weapons and all that. I'd have to do some work on that. Let's see. Eddie Tracker, tell Pianodean that the sum that needs to do. Tell Pianodean the sum that needs to do? I assume you mean song, and I'm trying to remember. I know I talked about something, but what was it now? My brain is fried. Jog my memory, Josh. I'm trying to remember what it was. Darth Aaron says, I think Delta Flyers should be used as fighters. Absolutely. The Delta Flyer, that's a beautiful fighter for the Star Trek universe. They should, in fact, now that Voyager's back, they should have whole fighter wings built like the Delta Flyer, since they could prove how effective it was. O'Brien only had to adapt the station because it's not meant to be moved, only to sustain the orbit. All right. Like I said, you can come up with the technobabble all day long. It doesn't change the fact that it looks stupid to me. Since Kurogan schools are so bad and produce such unintelligent students, would anything technical be considered technobabble? Not necessarily, because technobabble specifically refers to tech that is fictional. The problem is Kurogans simply can't tell the difference between technobabble and actual tech. You assume that the Battle of Mutar Nebula, the ships don't move like they're depicted in DS9, or that the nebula... You assume that that the Battle of Mutar Nebula, the ships didn't move like they depicted on DS9. They didn't! Or that the nebula is producing some sort of drag or messing up the systems. You know what? The Mutar Nebula was not... The entire battle was not in the nebula. You know that, right? I mean, look at the way in Star Trek II that the Reliant barely missed crashing into the Enterprise. And, and these ships are not uber maneuverable, all right? You could argue that the nebula created a little bit of drag. And, yes, both the ships had taken damage. But it doesn't change the fact that... let's look at... forget about Mutar Nebula for a minute. Let's fast forward to Star Trek VI, right? You have two of the biggest, baddest Federation ships ever made, right? The Connie Refit and the Excelsior. And the bird of prey is literally flying circles around them while they're practically standing still in comparison. And when Kirk orders them to back up, it's not like you see the Enterprise go whoom, like the Millennium Falcon was. Darth Raven says, in future Trek, if we saw DS-10 or 11, where would you like to see the station placed? I think on the border, at a border would be cool, and the station fixes ships and acts like DS9 well within the coming and going people. If you were going to do a show based around another deep space, because they have mentioned other deep space stations in Trek, and I think it was like in one of the TNG movies, they said something like a deep space and the number, but I can't remember what it was. And I would honestly, I think I would put it along. I think you're right. Put it along a border. Like, what if you had a deep space? And I think the way I think of a deep space station is that it's a station that is on the outer edge of the Federation. So, like, a starbase would be an established sector that belongs to the Federation. But if you're in an area like, say, you're right on the Romulan border, it would be a deep space station. And so I would put it probably at a point somewhere in the vicinity of Nimbus 3, where the Klingon, Romulan, and Federation borders meet, and have some interesting political tension. Kind of like Babylon 5, really, where you have the Romulans and the Klingons, and you have a Romulan character and a Klingon character that live on the station and hate each other's guts, and you could really make it like Londo, and I can never remember the other guy's name, but I think that would be kind of cool, actually. Let's see. Carlo says they have changed the scale of the Defiant in some shots because it looked better. Not arguing, just pointing it out on screen isn't always accurate. I get that. But if as far as canon is concerned, what you see on screen takes primacy over everything else. So what you would have to do is basically on screen you would go to compare all the various shots of the Defiant, and whatever the consensus is, this is the size of the ship. Not, does this book say it's 120? Does this book say it's 200? Does this book say it's 110? It doesn't matter. What matters is what we see on screen. Now, I know, Roxanne, you asked me to check Twitter. I haven't. Well, you see, the problem is, like, I see there's a tweet that you put out that says, I don't see anything. Let me see. Gary from Rock Solid replying to that I can live with. Let's see. Gary, earlier this week I posted a video featuring an Xbox One. Now I'm watching an episode of TOS TV. Someone help me. The quarantine's finally getting to me. Wow, you're actually watching TOS? That's weird. Let's see. And of course, Resolute says, glad to see you're finally getting well. As soon as you'll be able to say how good TOS is, and then Kirk is best captain. He's never going to admit that, Resolute. Cisco is the greatest captain, says Gary. Cisco is the best captain. The Pale Moonlight is all it needs to be said. Disagree. In the Pale Moonlight is a great episode for Deep Space Nine, but it's not. You know, the funny thing is, I don't understand why people think it's like the best episode ever, and then these same people say, but Discovery's too dark. Josh says, the Back in Black. Oh, yeah, Back in Crap. That's right. So we were talking about, or some kind of AC/DC cover. I love AC/DC, but I don't know if you can do that guitar riff. But yeah, Pianodean, something like that. Anyway, it's not reasonable to assume that Miranda. It's not reasonable to assume that Miranda from Kirk's era is the same as Miranda from Sisko's era. Sure, it is. It's the same ship. It's just, I mean, you could argue that the engines have been upgraded and all that, and fine, but and it might be faster, so it can, keep up with the big boys. But you know what? Honestly, if you're going to say that this Miranda has been outfitted with, say, 24th century tech as far as warp drive and stuff, I'm totally on board with that, except then you need to change the warp engines to match that era. And so, and I'm sorry, that's just a fact. But because warp drive, the nacelles are important. Those are the actual warp coils, and that's what determines how fast the damn thing can go. Umberto Prey 5 shockingly puts in a couple of bucks. Thank you, my friend. I do appreciate it, even though you're an evil, evil man.
Hello, world.
I got him! Great hit! Don't get cocky!
These 10 should be impact nor purchased by feds.
Well, Impact Noir already belongs to the feds. So there's that. All right, where were we? Resolute says that you keep bouncing between what you think is canon, what you think is good, makes it difficult to have a rational discussion. Sorry, Resolute. But no, as far as the size of the Defiant, that's the only thing I'm arguing about canon. The size of the Defiant is like, it looks like it's about the size of a Miranda class. Now, yes, you can find some shots where it looks smaller. You might find some shots where it looks larger, but at least in the battle scenes that I've seen, it looks like it's about the size of a Miranda class. I think that's too big for that ship. That's canon discussion. As far as the maneuverability thing, I'm not arguing it's not canon that the ships can move like that. I just think it looks stupid. That's all. Darren says, when it comes to ship scaling in Star Trek, the what's on screen rules should take a backseat to what the series and franchise Bible says, unless Starfleet uses PIM particles. Okay. I would, but the thing is that we don't have the series Bible. We have various charts that have been made by people that were not the producers of the show. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know who designed the Defiant model, but whoever did, if they came out and said this is how big it was intended to be, that'd be, that would be interesting to talk about. But then I would ask them about, well, do you think these shots are accurate? But anyway, yes, tweeted. And by the way, I don't even know if there's an official record of how big the Miranda is. Yes, I tweeted tell you, Alberta Prey. The tweet is Spock's brain is terrible. The Cisco is better than any other captain. Well, Spock's brain is not the best episode of TOS. I'll admit that. And Alberta Prey 5 puts in another $1.
I got him! Great hit! Don't get cocky!
Now that I pardoned Pianodean, he is invited to my house for dinner. No need for security. I promise I won't hurt him.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, Bird. Sorry. An AC/DC parody called Thundercrap. There you go. There it says, the warp engines of the Miranda were changed for DS9. The only thing they changed, it's the same design. They just made the black area blue. That's it. They added a little bit of glow to it. But they did not significantly change it. And of course, I know that there are different variants of the Miranda, but you could argue that that's been around for a long time. Carlos says, I've thought the Miranda class had a substructure strong enough to withhold the new warp drives, but the Connie wasn't. That's why it's decommissioned in Star Trek 6. Well, the Connie line of ships wasn't decommissioned, just the Enterprise herself. I think that it's an insult that the Constitution class didn't last as long as the Miranda class. Quite frankly, it's a better design. And I can understand why they did it. They didn't want people to be confused because the Enterprise always has that same basic configuration, saucer engineering 2 nacelles, and maybe idiots couldn't tell that just because it was an old Constitution class that it wasn't the Enterprise, The DS9 Mirandas have blue glows coming from their nacelles, while the ones from earlier do not. Right, that's the difference. But I'm sorry, adding a little blue glow to it that's not a change to the warp nacelle. The warp nacelle should be shaped. All the next-gen warp nacelles are shaped more like the Excelsior's warp nacelles. And that's why I don't have a problem with the Excelsior still being around. Plus, the Excelsior was the first transwarp ship, and I do believe that while they renamed it just Warp Drive, but the transwarp drive that they developed for the Excelsior became the new warp scale that we see in TNG. But and any other ship should have nacelles that are shaped like that, rather than being, because they went from circular to rectangular to ovular, and so it should be ovular. John says, we can compare the Enterprise refit and the Enterprise D as the flagships of their eras. Both of them maneuver deliberately, but advances in tech would allow 20 faster. I'm not arguing that it's not possible. I'm arguing that it looks stupid. Defiant versus Excelsior class, Lakota had a good scale. I haven't seen, but is that the picture you sent me earlier? I mean, I don't know how accurate it is. Again, the problem is that unless CBS comes out and says, here's our official chart, but even then, if the VFX changes, then, and Darren says, Trek Yards often uses the official sizes. Yes, I know. Trek Yards is a good source for quote-unquote official material. However, if you want to argue that the Defiant is the size of the Millennium Falcon, you go right ahead. It's obviously not. It's too freaking big. If they want to say it's a cramped ship, it should be the size of the Millennium Falcon, or a little bit bigger. But honestly, it's way the heck too big. It should be one deck. The entire ship should only be one deck. When I solicited feedback for the best episodes of TOS Watch Review, Spock's Bang was one big per audience recommendation. They were trolling you. Rock Solid. They were absolutely trolling you. That's a fact, my friend. As Spock's Brain is considered a great episode by no one. I have a soft spot for Spock's Brain only because it's the first episode I saw outside of the womb. And I'm not making that up. I was born in between season 2 and season 3, and Spock's Brain, I think, was the first episode that was aired after I was born. The blue glow in the DS9 Mirandas was in the real world called evidence of change. No, it's a superficial change. That's what it is. And he says, it's evidence the internal components of the nacelles were changed more in line with modern nacelles. I get that. I understand what you're saying. But Darren, it still doesn't change the fact that it looks stupid to me. All right. It does. And I think it's ridiculous for people to say, oh, that now the Miranda class only has a crew of 12 or whatever it was. And I think that's equally stupid, because what a waste of space to have a ship with more mass in it than a Constitution class with 12 people on board. It should, it's I'm sorry, it's just silly. And it's all right, man. If you want to like it, that's fine. If you want to argue about the canonical evidence, it's absolutely canon. I'm not saying it's not canon, that it's maneuverable and all that. But just changing it from black to blue, and it's not even, they didn't even change it. All they did was add a blue glow to it. It's the same black panel. If you look at it when in the shots of it, you can see that the panel is black. It just has a blue glow off of it. But changing from black to blue and then saying, look, we've radically changed it, that's a load of crap. It's lazy. It is absolutely lazy. And I'm talking about the producers of the show. And I know they were trying to save on money and all that. Then, fine, I get that. But, hey, you had the money to build a crappy Defiant model. Maybe you should have made the Defiant look more like the Miranda, and then you could have saved a little money. They had Constitution models in Best of Both Worlds, didn't use them in the Dominion War because they didn't have good models. Resolute, they show a destroyed secondary hull. That's not the same as saying they had Constitution models. I mean, yes, that hull is consistent with the Constitution, but it's entirely fan theory that is, in fact, a Constitution class. We don't know what it was. They just wanted to show a lot of wreckage, and they probably used a model of a Constitution hull there, but so what? That's not using the ship. That's ramming a part in for a VFX shot. I want to actually see the ship in action. And notice when they actually show the battle of Wolf 359, didn't see any Constitution class ships zipping around, did you? So Excelsiors and Mirandas. I'm trying to remember if we saw any modern ships at all. I'd have to go back and rewatch the Emissary. If we had another Trouble with Tribbles type episode, do you agree that the Enterprise BRC would be a good to expand their canon? I don't know. The problem is that the real problem in the Enterprise is everything from the NX through the Enterprise D is established, right? We know that what all versions of the Enterprise look like. We even know what they were going to do, but didn't with the NX, right? So we get the problem is that in order to do anything new, you'd have to go to the Enterprise F, and quite frankly, I think the tech is too advanced to be an interesting show anymore. You got you got to completely start from scratch. What the heck was that? Let's see. It's something from the line. Oh, okay. I'll check that out later. All right. I can do AC/DC guitars in my sleep. It's the singing that's the hard part. I'll bet. Yeah. I blame your audience. They're the ones who recommended TOS TV fans are dicks confirmed. No, they just, you know what? Here's the thing, Rock Solid. Forever, you have been sitting there talking about how much TOS sucks. Forever, you've been talking about how everything about TOS is lame. And so what do you expect? Seriously, what do you expect? If you want to watch a great episode of TOS, you watch episodes like Balance of Terror. That is a great episode. You can watch Amok Time. That's a great episode. Watch Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. That is a great episode. But Spock's Brain, that one's, some people think it's the worst episode of all. I don't, but a lot of people do. The refit was born of the old Connie the refit was built from the old Connie substructures. The new ones use leftover substructures of unbuilt Connies, but the Miranda class was fresh build. Sure, it's mentioned. It's mentioned in TNG. What episode was that? What did they say specifically that they made the refitted Connies all out of the originals? Because if that were the case, then they only made 12 of them. And why didn't they make the Defiant? I guess because the Defiant was destroyed. Never mind. And in fact, that's a problem anyways, because pretty much every Connie was destroyed except the Enterprise. But so there was only one Connie. Is that what you're saying? I don't know that that's true, but and if it's canon, it's canon. But I've never heard that. But it's a beautiful design. When you have a design that freaking awesome, don't piss it away. I know why they didn't use it. They didn't want to, especially in TNG, they didn't want a ship that looked a hell of a lot better than the Galaxy class, because the Galaxy class was their hero ship. Darth says, "Don't lie, you were born in between gods. 10X and 9X great-grandparents, you worked on the planning of the universe. You came up with the concept of coffee and chocolate cake." Wow, that was random. Darren says, "I get that. I can see Darren's superior mental acumen when it comes to Star Trek ships." That's not what I said. Tiki, I did say I get that. I didn't say that I concede to Darren's superior mental. I concede the point that it's canon. Sure, they changed it from black to blue. Therefore, something in it has changed. Assuming for a minute that if they ever did a flashback of a Miranda class in the 23rd century, it would be black again. And it's just not an update to the visual effects. Because, sometimes they update the visual effects too. It's cost effective, not lazy. No, it is lazy. It is cost effective as well, but it is lazy to say, "Oh, we'll add a blue glow." I mean, if someone makes a movie about a race car, and what they do is they get a 1947 Chevy, if there was such a thing, and they added an extra muffler to the back, and they said now it's a modern race car. That's what you got here. I don't think it's a stretch that Starfleet could fit the nacelle components from a runabout into the nacelles of Miranda. Runabouts could outperform Kirk's era Mirandas. A runabout doesn't have the mass of a Miranda, so the nacelle components of a runabout wouldn't make the Miranda go. I mean, if you wanted to argue, like, look at, even in that GIF that I was showing, like, if we look at that again, right? Now, if you look at the nacelles, for lack of a better term, on the Defiant, notice the shape. No, and they're actually shorter than the Miranda. If you took and put a couple of those on the warp pylons, bam! I could buy that. But the fact that the Miranda has the same reactor pod, the same impulse stack, everything on it is physically exactly the same, except that there's a blue glow on the nacelles. That's lazy. I mean, hell, they redressed the Miranda in, now I forget the name of the episode, the one with Kelsey Grammer, where they were stuck in the time loop. A Cause and Effect. I love that episode, and yes, I liked that one because it didn't just look like another Reliant, it looked like this was a different ship. If they, that at least they made some physical changes, so it's not like they couldn't do it. Roxanne says, when I asked for advice on what to check out to change my perspective, they gave me something that reinforces it. Again, TOS TV sucks, but women's costumes kind of hot. You know what, Roxanne? Just please stop saying that, all right? I know you don't like it. You don't have to tell me 75 times every time I live stream. It gets a little old. I don't think it's fair to judge TOS by episode. Spock's and the Children Shall Leave reminds me of people who judge TNG by season 1. Well, that actually, that's a fair point, because I do, I've said many times, if all there was of TNG was season 1, then yeah, I would say TNG sucked, because I think season 1 did suck. But I think that TNG went on to become a great show. Not the best, but a great show. And yeah, you use episodes like Spock's Brain and The Children Shall Lead, Miri. Yeah, there are some bad episodes. There are some bad episodes, by the way, of almost every Trek show that I can think of. DS9 probably has the best good to bad ratio of all of them. But but they also, in my opinion, DS9 doesn't have the greatest episodes either. It's kind of in the middle. And that's probably why the DS9 show isn't as popular as the other ones. It's not that DS9 had sucky shows. They didn't. But they didn't have great shows. Turdy deeds done bird cheap. Let's be fair, man. Do you think anything after TOS is too advanced? Not necessarily. I actually liked most of the tech on Deep Space Nine, but they rolled it back a little bit. The whole point of the space station was that it was inferior tech. But I do like in TOS and in the original 6 films, the Enterprise felt like a ship, not a luxury resort. And I don't like it feeling like a luxury resort is all. Josh says, the only new ship class at Wolf 359 was the Nebula. Oh, yeah, the Nebula was there, too. I forgot about that. Watching you flop and twitch over the Miranda is like watching a building crumble to the ground in slow motion. Darren, you know what? I'm not flopping and twitching. I'm simply disagreeing with you about it. I think that having the Miranda zip around looks stupid. I think that just adding a blue glow and saying that now it's a modern ship is lazy. And if you're going to do that, then fine. Bring in the Connies. Hey, they have O-berths in fighting the frickin' Borg. Why can't they have a frickin' Constitution? Why are there no Stargazers, whatever they're called? I don't remember. Constellation. Why is the Miranda the only one that they bring in, and all they do to it is give it a green glow? And then the Excelsior. The Excelsior is the only one of them that made sense, because at least it had, it was the first of the modern warp engines. But to have the Miranda in there with the classic warp engine design, don't get me wrong, I think it's a better design. I'm sure that's why they kept it, because it's a better looking warp nacelle. Because I'm sorry, but I think the warp nacelles on the Enterprise D look like cartoons. But at the same time, I don't buy for a second that this warp nacelle is going to keep up with the rest of the Federation, especially if we want to argue that the Connie couldn't. Only 12 remain in TOS, but there were more substructures. Another 12 planned, I think, and 12 not built were made into refits, but many substructures wasn't right to have new warp. According to whom? And how does that make any sense? I mean, it's illogical. It does. Why would? I mean, are you saying that the pylons are too long, or what? I mean, because the Enterprise had a bigger engineering deck, so why is it that the Enterprise couldn't be refitted easier than, say, a Miranda? And by the way, if you took a with the way that the modular construction of Starfleet ships, if you wanted to say, well, they needed more engineering room, then put a new engineering deck on it. Wouldn't be that hard. Roxanne, to make your point better, it's more like adding a muffler to muffler bearings to the 47 Chevy. Well, I'm just trying to. No, it needs to be something that you can see from the outside. I don't know jack about cars. Forgive me. From muffler bearings, can you see that? I don't know what that is exactly. But like we're putting a blue glow on the tailpipe. Sorry, Trigger, that shot is dope. Well, you know what? First of all, nobody says dope anymore, but I think I disagree. For one thing, you wouldn't have ships in a formation that close to each other in space. For another, you wouldn't have Mirandas as your fighter wing. At least I don't think so. Carlos says, have you ever seen a car upgrade with a new engine? However, it looks the same on the outside. Can't the new warp coils fit in the old nacelle? Not from what we've seen. The new warp coils are much wider, and the nacelles from the TMP era are very narrow. Threshold is as bad as Spock's brain. Threshold is worse. Threshold is the single worst episode in all of Trek. And yes, I'm even including Discovery in that. DS9 had plenty of great episodes. I'm not saying that they didn't. Okay, great is a relative term, right? That's the problem. Is that if you say, DS9 had some really, really good episodes. Don't get me wrong. However, I don't know. To me, when I think about great episodes of Trek, I will tell you that only episodes from TOS and TNG come to mind, generally speaking. They, and so it's like there's from TOS you have episodes like Balance of Terror, the other ones that I mentioned earlier. From TNG you obviously have the Best of Both Worlds. You have the Inner Light. You have Chain of Command. The Drumhead. You have some really great episodes there. For DS9 had some really good stories. And actually the best arc of all of Trek with the Dominion War. But as far as great individual episodes, I don't think they had anything that reached that level to me. Douglas says, good afternoon, Entry. I agree. We would have liked to see more diversity among the Mirandas shown in the Dominion War. Yeah, I mean, they're just a bunch of clone ships, and it's just laziness. That's all it is. They just shot the same model over and over and over, and, with the blue glow, say, look at how unique it is. I took the fans of all this. I'll try another episode. I don't know these episodes by name. I know what I've seen and not enjoyed. A handful, or at least watchable. Well, like I said, you want to see my personal favorite Rock Solid, watch Balance of Terror. That is my absolute favorite. Yosa says, what's wrong with you guys, Trigger? DS9 are the best Trek episodes ever. Let me guess. In the Pale Moonlight. You're going to go back to In the Pale Moonlight, because I'm sorry, that is the most overrated episode in all of Trek. I'm not saying it's bad. It's a great episode. But it is overrated. And in fact, I mean, it's almost a character assassination on Sisko. If there was an Olympic event called mental gymnastics, you would be Mary Lou Retton. Ha ha, very funny. Darden says, what is the canon reason for so few sovereign classes? I don't think there is one. Honestly, they just never addressed it. There's, and that's something they tend to do is like, oh, well, the Enterprise is our hero ship, so we're only going to show one of those. Roxas says, muffler bearings are the equivalent of saying you need a halogen fluid for your headlights. It's not a real thing. Oh, I don't know. See, I don't know jack about. I don't work on cars. Best ships being held back so as to conserve them. That's why the Connies aren't seen. Jeff says, Threshold is a pretty good episode until the last 10 minutes. I disagree. Threshold is a horrible episode throughout. You know why? They use the freaking computer to simulate whether or not they can break the rules of physics. That's beyond stupid. You can't run a computer simulation on what would happen if we violate the laws of physics. The computer, even if you had a computer as smart as the computers we see in the TNG era with the holodeck and everything, and you can just give it vague English instructions. If I were to say, okay, computer, show me what would happen if we went to warp 10, and the computer should come back with error, warp 10 is theoretically impossible. Well, that's okay, show me anyway. Error, cannot calculate. There's no way to simulate the impossible. That would be like going into the holodeck and saying, computer, show me a square circle. It can't do it. Martin says the miracles are like destroyers. Through Miranda's are like destroyers protecting the Galaxy class battleships as in World War 11, or I assume you mean World War II. Well, my mouse is wigging out now. That's weird. Shoot. Let's see if I can get control of the mouse again. Well, they are. I mean, that's the thing is that's actually not what we see. We see them flanking the Defiant, protecting the Defiant, and of course both of them get destroyed because we can't let anything but the Defiant actually make it through. And so, but they are flanking the Defiant to add protection for it. And of course, everybody on those two ships dies and nobody cares. Yo says Threshold is an Emmy Award-winning episode. Did Balance of Terror win one? Trolling. Yeah, I know. That's the ironic thing, is that the worst episode in all of Trek won an Emmy. Let's see. City on the Edge of Forever. Yes, that is a good one, too. I didn't even think of that. Good one, John. Roxal, put that on your list. So, I would say, Balance of Terror, City on the Edge of Forever. Let that be your last battlefield. Don't let DS9 reuse battles. Don't forget DS9 reused battle scenes during the war. Of course they did. But you know what? That I can forgive to a certain extent. Trek has always done that, where you just show the same shot of the Enterprise firing phasers, and then you show the enemy ship getting hit or whatever. That's, what it is. Martin's yelling it's a fake. Jeff says, Yosef, you're exactly right. LOL, take that, anti-checker. Well, that's all right. We disagree on that. I don't hate you for liking, if you think Deep Space Nine is the best of Trek, I have no problem with you whatsoever. In fact, I would say that I can even understand that because I think Deep Space Nine is the second best Trek. And part of what makes Deep Space Nine so great is how badass Sisko is. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of just a modernized version of Kirk. Way the Warrior, since you were asking. What? I was asking about Way the Warrior, or you were asking what a good episode from season 1 of TNG would be? Black Delegation says, attention Bajoran workers. I'm not sure why. Carlos says, for the uniform, the downfall of Starfleet officer. You're talking about great DS9 episodes. Way the Warrior. Oh, that was the one with the albino, right? Is that the one? No, that was Blood Oath. Which one's Way the Warrior? Now I'm forgetting. Or is that that's the one where Martok got his groove back? Was that it? But yeah, if that's a really good one. I'm not gonna lie, I love that episode. But I don't think Way the Warrior quite hits the level of, say, the Inner Light. It just doesn't jump out at me as like, ooh, and it's not. And a big problem with Deep Space Nine, as far as great episodes, this is a genuine problem with serialized storytelling that they did during the Dominion War. Is you can't tell somebody to just watch Way of the Warrior and you'll get Deep Space Nine, because you have to know about the war. You have to know about. Oh, is that the one? That's when Worf came on. Yeah. So that's part. The war is going on. You have to know about what's going on with the Klingons. You have to know what's going on politically throughout the Federation. It's not a standalone episode like you could just jump in there and have it make sense. That's a problem with serialized storytelling in any show. For the uniformed downfall of Starfleet officer, but the birth of a warrior is Cisco finally becoming what Starfleet needs to fight the Dominion. But again, not a standalone story, but a good one. There are more episodes of Deep Space Nine that hit me emotionally than any other Star Trek series. The Visitor's beautiful episode. Anyone who lost parent should hit strongly. What's the one? Here's one that I think if you want to come up with a great Deep Space Nine episode, I can't remember the name of it now. Well, there's the one where the Cardassian wants to be convicted for being the mass murderer when he wasn't. I can't remember which one that was, but and Kira was interrogating him. That's a great episode. I did like that one. The episode with Benny Russell was I'm not sure which one you mean. Nightbreeze in the house. Good to see you. Bird of Prey is trying to take control of Anitrek's computer. I think that's what it was, but he failed. Let's see. Rock Salt said, "Let that be your last battlefield." Is the one with Loki and Beale? Yes. ISD is a versus Connie refit. Most excellent video. My nitpicking point: if Enterprise shields can take Vidra's plasma thingy and lose only 70%, what hope does an ISD have? Well, in fairness, we don't know if Vidra's plasma thingy would get through an ISD shields. What I say about the shield point is that, and especially if people want to push the issue on it, is that in Trek, shields clearly protect from pretty much anything until they're down. In Star Wars, we've never seen shields stop a physical object, at least in the original trilogy era. There's no, the Millennium Falcon docks on a shielded ship. That shouldn't be possible if shields actually worked against physical objects. Now, you could argue that what about the deflector around the second Death Star? But that was a planetary generated shield. That was so big that they needed a planet-side base to generate the power for it. Let's see. Way the Warrior was when Worf came to Deep Space Nine. Yeah, I got that. Douglas says, Battle Space, the Cardassian border war has some nice reliant variants in the Battle of Badlands. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. Rock Solid says, so to put the issue to bed, I went into Spock's brain expecting the best of TOS based on recommendations. Went in blind, reinforced my biases. It's POS, then I'll try again. If it's a POS, then I'll try again. Yeah, it's Spock's. You were being trolled. Anybody that told you Spock's Brain is an episode you should watch was trolling you. I tell you that 100%. I don't know who told you, but that is absolutely crap. Was that Duet? No, Duet was a different one. I thought, but maybe it was. I was thinking Duet, but I thought. I see. I'm getting my episodes confused because which the one? Remember, there's the one Cardassian that thought that Kira was his daughter, and I thought for some reason I thought that was Duet, but maybe I'm wrong. That was a good one too, but different level. Let's see. Duet is the episode where the Cardassian wants to be convicted. Okay, I'll take you at your word then. So I gotta say, guys, I'm glad that I'm feeling a little better. I'm not 100% yet, but I think I will be in the next few days. But definitely rock solid in all seriousness. I know I make fun of you a lot because you're kind of a dick, but yeah, whoever, you honestly take the names of whoever told you to watch Spock's Brain and just make a list because they're all trolling you 100%. And Second Skin had Kira as a Cardi, but then he came back. That's the one I was thinking of. Remember, he came back because he was terminally ill, and he wanted to pass on his knowledge to Kira. But I can't remember the name of that one. But it was a good episode. Anyway, rock solid. So yeah, I would say if you want to see 3 really great TOS episodes, Balance of Terror, if you want to see best space battle, period, And because the reason I say the Balance of Terror's best space battle, not counting the movies, because the Mutara Nebula battle I think was a little better, but it's fought like a chess match, not like a first-person shooter. It's fought strategically. B, it gets into the mind of both Kirk and the Romulan commander, and you get the idea that they are equals. And it's the introduction of the Romulans. So since you know who the Romulans are, this is their first appearance ever, and like the big reveal that they look like Vulcans, basically. It's a really, really solid episode. So start with Balance of Terror. That's a great episode. From there, I would go to, if you want a truly so Balance of Terror is like TOS action at its absolute best. You want a truly emotional episode, then go to City on the Edge of Forever. City on the Edge of Forever features Joan Collins and is a wonderful character piece for Kirk. And people think that Kirk is a horn dog. He really isn't. He's what someone referred to him as a serial monogamist. He didn't just sleep around just for the hell of it. Most of the time, it was either to get information or because he was genuinely in love. And this was Kirk's true love. And when the way that movie or that episode ends is intense. So absolutely, you want to see City on the Edge of Forever. And then finally, let that be your last battlefield if you want to see TOS commentary, social commentary at its absolute best. Not about racism, it is about the destructive power of hate itself. And you watch those 3 episodes, and then you come back and tell me they were all crap. I dare you. And rock solid. The Romulans appeared in Enterprise, that's true. But the first appearance of the Romulans chronologically was in Balance of Terror. And in Enterprise, notice the humans never saw the Romulans, and that was on purpose because the big thing was nobody knew what a Romulan looked like. And let's see, Thomas links to an article, looks like article for 10 best episodes of the original series. Enemy Within. Enemy Within is actually an interesting character piece. Corbomite Maneuver is a good one. Balance of Terror, yes, my absolute favorite. Devil in the Dark is a good one. City on the Edge of Forever, Amok Time, Mirror Mirror, Doomsday Machine, Journey to Babel, Trouble with Tribbles. Yeah, that's a good list. Actually, that is a really good list. I would say, honestly, rock solid, if you click on that link that Thomas gave you, although I'm really surprised Let That Be Your Last Battlefield isn't on their list. That's kind of shocking. Because that's their absolute best social commentary. So I would start with, honestly, I think that you should start with the ones that I told you as far as Balance of Terror, City on the Edge of Forever, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Then you could go to a list like this if you want to see some more really great ones. Didn't like Doomsday Machine. I thought the acting was terrible. Well, that's just, you know what? I get that, but the acting was very 1960s. That's the problem. If you look at a lot of shows in the 60s, that's how acting was. It's just like if you go back to the 30s and 40s when women were like, well, I will tell you how I feel. It's just a different style. And Kirk just had sex addiction episodes like Riker. Actually, no, you see, Kirk, if you look around, he did not sleep around that much. I mean, Riker got a lot more action than Kirk ever did. Kirk just had a reputation for it for some reason. And the funny thing is that there were several times where in the original series where Kirk would run into people he had serious relationships in the past, like in Shore Leave or Court Martial. In both of those episodes, Kirk ran into women that he previously had relationships with. But if you look at Kirk's history, there are several episodes where he genuinely falls in love. I would say the 2 women, though, that made the biggest impact on him personally would be Edith Keeler and Miramani. Those 2 women, Kirk absolutely loved with a passion. And I think that William Shatner did a great job with both of those episodes. And honestly, Kirk, well, when I say that, Rock Solid, I know you're making a joke out of it, but he didn't. People think that Kirk just slept with anything that moved. He didn't. No, Carol Marcus was never in a TOS episode, but Carol Marcus was almost like the trope where Kirk runs into someone that he had a serious relationship with in the past. This was the only time in Star Trek II was the first time that we got a hint that Kirk actually had children, though, which was interesting. Anyway, I am going to wrap it up here. I got a lot to try and get done today, but I want and Darren, I know you wanted to talk. I don't know if I'll have time to talk today, but if we can't, let me know what your schedule is tomorrow, and we can talk like before or after work or something for you. Let me know in Skype. But I want to try and I got to get some work done on this project. I'm trying to learn how to like do some particle effects for the big battle that's going to come up. I also got to take Mrs. H. Tricker to the store. Space Seed, yeah, first appearance of Khan, that's a good one. Although, man, that's
Hello.
and Alex Kurtzman donated $1.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Don't watch any old Trek. It was right-wing trash, sexist, racist and homophobic. Only watch my Trek. Number 11.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. 2 people downvoted this stream. I wonder who they were. Probably Rock Solid and Bird of Prey. That's what I'm thinking. And Alexander popped in just at the end there. Good to see you, my crazy friend. Hope things are going well up in Quebec. Anyway, so I was going to say something, but I can't remember now because Alex Kurtzman. You see, I should tell you right there. If Alex Kurtzman hates the original series, then you know it should be good. But you know I do think, yeah, with Space Seed, there are some brutal scenes as far as abuse against a young woman. But do not get me wrong. It is done in proper context. While what happens to Ensign MacGyver's is horrible, it makes sense when you think about Khan and his character. They weren't portraying it like that was the right thing to do, but it is brutal, truly brutal. Anyway, guys, you got please, come on and join me and Matthew tonight on the virtual pub. And who knows, maybe, I'll talk to Matthew about it, maybe we'll reveal what our big secret project is about if the printer's done. That 3D printer has been going non-stop for, I think today is day 8. So hopefully it doesn't fail at the last minute, then I'll cry. But anyway, guys, so please come and join us on the virtual pub tonight at 8:45 Central. Sorry, I can't convert it to other time zones. I'm still too not feeling well. But it's an open mic. Anybody can come join, and you can have some vodka or whatever. Drinking is not required, but it's always happens, and I usually drink too much and then say embarrassing things. So if you want to see me embarrass myself, come on to the virtual pub.
Making your way with the nerds today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from hating JJ sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to just get laid? Sometimes you wanna go where all the Trekkies know your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be in a galaxy where Star Trek.
And Rock Solid puts in a couple of bucks. I knew he was saving up for something. And look at all the turds flopping around there. And no one wants... What? No one wants to see Anti-Trekker Barra? I don't plan... I'm not sure what the EM is for there. Anti-Trekker M. Barast. Oh, embarrassed. Okay. Wow. Wow. That took me a minute. I can't believe it.
Hello,
I don't know if it'll read that because you have asked it.
I got him! Great hit! Don't get cocky!
No one wants to see anti-trekker embarrassed number 15.
Well, I guess it did. I'm shocked.
Sir, we are being hailed.
On screen. What is your problem?
I am Lore.
Do you need help?
I have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Lore Reloaded.
Let me guess, their rubber band broke, right?
I make YouTube go.
There you go, Rock Solid. Have a good one.
You wanna go where everybody knows your name. Turds of a feather flock together, that's what we believe. We know a place that's got you covered, a place to get relief. Wouldn't you like to say me poo?
Here he goes. Rock Solid's just going to be going crazy here. And yes, I did get the embarrassed. It took me a minute because I'm slow. Testing Zoom integration with XSplit. Let's hope. Oh, like Zoom, I've never used it. So, hope it works, I guess. RP lore gone too soon. What? What? I enjoyed the stream slightly more than Spock's brain. Wow. Wow, Rock Solid. And after I was nice to you and started recommending really good Star Trek episodes for you to watch.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
And being a jerk. All right, and Resolute also put in 99 cents. Thank you, Resolute. And LD puts a link to something on YouTube, probably his own channel, knowing him. So, Rock Solid is playing the audio from this live stream on his live stream. So that's good enough for Rock Solid's live stream.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
So there we go. That's all right. And Resolute also put in 99 cents. Thank you, Resolute. And LD puts a link to something on YouTube, probably his own channel. Live. And yes, sorry, Rock Solid. Because I was reading comments from you, and I saw LDG. And so now I got confused. And so, and over at LD, oh, I see Thomas is over there already. Jerk. Sorry, Rock Solid, because I was reading comments from you. Yeah, get rid of that. I don't want to get copyright struck. All right, and thank you so much, Resolute. I do appreciate it. And so, if you do want to hang out with Rock Solid, you know, he's over there doing his thing. So go hang out with Rock Solid. And make sure to give them a hard time, because that's what we do. We give each other a hard time for no reason other than just to be jerks for some reason.
Sometimes you wanna go where turn steady slow.
I said Rock Solid again, didn't I? Not Rock Solid, LDG Pickles. Oh man, I am just having a rough day. But Rock Solid puts in another $1 because why not? Stanley says, this is hurting my head. Quit calling LDG Rock Solid. I'm sorry. I am so sorry, Rock Solid. I know. I kept calling LDG Rock Solid. And you want number 2. You got it.
I'm a better female character than you.
You would be if you didn't spend all your time with that temper tantrum
There's
mean
no
guy.
such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
Take it back.
No, 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 Yes. I'm a better female character than you.
You would be if you didn't spend all your time with that temper tantrum meme guy.
At least I'm not the one on a show with a questionable acronym.
Take it back.
No.
Yes.
Oops. Sorry to bother you.
Sorry, I was reading something. All right, guys. So, man, I'm just like, I messed up here.
And all Kurogans are to blame. You wanna be where you can see Kuroga go up in flames. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
You son of a bitch, anti-tracker! Hello, world.
I got him!
I was like literally about to hit the button.
Please read Twitter after the stream.
Oh, and Fortean Barber. Good to see you, my friend. How's your friend 13 Barber? Sorry you came in right when I'm leaving, but good to see you. By the way, let me say, Fortean Barber has got the sweetest voice of any human male, I think, on the planet. It's just like he actually makes Dr. Alex sound like me. That's the kind of voice this guy's got. So you know what, Fortean? I don't know what, I know you're in the UK, and so I don't know what time it is for you. Like, I think you're like 8 hours ahead. So that means that, like, let's see, that would be about 4 o'clock in the morning your time. You should come on to Life with Matthew's channel and join the virtual pub, because I would pay real money to see you get drunk. So, yeah. So it's 6 p.m. for you right now. That means that, let's see. So if it's 6 p.m. and it's noon, so you're only 6 hours ahead. So that means that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So about 2:45 in the morning is when we start for you. So stay up late and come have a drink with us. I'll make sure that Matthew reserves a seat for you if you show up, because he's the bartender and stuff and junk and stuff.
Well, I've been
and look at our radio. Wow, that was just bizarre. Thank you. Lookout Tower Radio puts in $1 or £1 actually. I got to get my currency right. And see, Matthew said he'll save you a seat. So awesome.
Hello, world.
And so thank you, Lookout Tower Radio. Always good to see you here too. I know that I've seen you around before, but I don't know if you wanted a super chat or you just wanted to say put $1 in. And Roxall's saying restart the credits. I'm not restarting the credits. Not gonna do it. But I'm thinking about doing something really evil. That could be fun. Let's try that. Let's do this. We're gonna move over to here. Hold on. I got it. Let's go down here and we'll bring this up. All right, and let's go down here. And all right, so now we got me on there. Now check this out. Let's see if we can make this work here. We'll put on Rock Solid's favorite thing in the whole world.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
Alright, so we got that. And now, turn that off. And we'll go to...
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
But wait, it'll get worse. So we got that. And now, turn that off. And we'll go to...
According to a fashion scientist... According to a fashion scientist,